Good evening and welcome to the DBN wrap-up broadcast of Boston Massacre 2020. I am Brandon Fogel, and I am joined by the tournament director, Randy Lawrence Hurt, and one of the commentators on our broadcast of Boston Massacre, David Hood. Welcome to the wrap-up show, David and Randy.
Hey there, Brandon.
And here is the top 7 for Massacre 2020. In 7th is Conrad Woodring, who's a longtime hobby player. In 6th place was Klaus de Graaf, who is a Dutch player, well known in the European circuit, I believe. He was one of the tournament directors for the European DIPCON, I think. In 5th was Andres Janeco, who is Portuguese, as far as we know. Russ Dennis is the he is the editor and publisher of the Diplomacy Briefing, the newsletter that has quickly become a standard in the hobby. And correct me if I'm wrong, David, but Russ also finished 4th at Virtual Dixie. Is that right?
Yes, and he also got Best England at Virtual Dixie, as he did at Virtual Massacre.
He is
apparently he is a one-trick pony.
He is a consistent player, clearly.
And in 3rd is Benji Aarons Richardson. I actually don't know anything about him. Do you guys know offhand?
Benji is an Englishman who lives in Israel, and he was playing in his first tournament. And of course, living in Israel, he was playing at a very odd set of hours, but enjoyed his experience very much, as you can tell.
His first diplomacy tournament ever. Is that right?
I believe he had played an online tournament with some friends that he had himself organized, but this was the first time playing in our, with our crowd.
Got it. In 2nd place was Maxim Popov, who is a teenager from Iowa, I believe. And yes. Maxim is going to be joining us later on the show, along with Lea Letourneau for a newer player segment that we'll have toward the end. And the champion of this year's tournament was Tanya Gill, who will also be joining us in a little bit to talk about her victory. Tanya is a crossover player from the online world. She's big in the web dip community and started playing face-to-face 2 years ago, I believe. And she made a splash at the World Championships in Oxford. She placed in 3rd there. And she sort of viewed that 3rd place as a bit of an albatross because people used to bring it up all the time. And in fact, it was so much that she really asked people to stop talking about it. Of course, it was a negotiating tactic, right? Like people wanted to make her seem, scary to the people that they were negotiating with. A bit lost in all of that hoopla is the fact that she's an excellent player. And she's been demonstrating that with a lot of good finishes in recent tournaments. And here, I believe this is her first tournament victory, though. It's certainly well earned, and we'll take a look at how she did this in a second. First, let us have a look at the Best Country Awards. In Austria, no surprise, Tanya Gill. She soloed as Austria, which is always a fantastic thing to do. Congratulations on that.
You usually get a Best Country if you do that.
You usually do. In England was Russ Dennis, who apparently does this on a regular basis. France was Christian Klein, Chicago Weasel, who had a potential solo bid that he passed up. Which we might have a look at. In Germany was Lea Letourneau, playing in only her 2nd diplomacy game ever. So an impressive result there. And like I said, we'll be interviewing her later on the show, along with Maxim Popov, who, skipping down, was Best Russia. And correct me if I'm wrong, David, he was also Best Russia at Dixie. Is that right?
That is exactly right. I just shipped him his plaque yesterday.
Excellent. Yes, so true to his last name, he is a specialist in Russia. Italy was Ben Durfee. I don't know Ben Durfee. Do you guys?
Ben is a very experienced player on WebDip, I believe, maybe even one of the moderators. He lives in Georgia, but this and Dixie, I think, were his first forays into the face-to-face scene.
So he wins Best Italy, and Best Turkey went to John Anderson, who we've repeatedly joked about being the independent presidential candidate from the 1980 election. And he finished with a board top in Turkey, and that was well deserved. Do we know anything about where John is coming from?
I believe he's in Utah, if I remember correctly.
Okay, where former presidential candidates go, I guess.
Apparently so.
More than one there. All right, so this is the Best Country Awards. There were 2 alternate awards, Player's Choice. Randy, maybe you can say a bit about Player's Choice.
Sure. Player's Choice is a great award that hopefully more and more tournaments will pick up. The idea is to recognize that we're playing a game, so we should be having fun, and we want to reward the players who do the best job of having fun and making it fun for others. So who best displays the ideals of sportsmanship and camaraderie and having a good time that we really want out of all of our players at the tournament. There were quite a few nominations for Player's Choice at Massacre this year, which was always great to see. It means there's quite a few players that other people enjoy playing with. I'll just quickly announce who the nominees were. Ariel Mendez-Panade, Andre Janico, Maxim Popov, Melinda Holly, Tanya Gill, Russ Dennis, and Amari Lauren were all nominated. And then Stephen Hogue won because he was the only player who was nominated by 2 different people for his performance in one particular round, where he was put in a very rough position on his board early on, but continued fighting the good fight, talked to everyone, had a good time, was clearly making it a good time for everyone else. And just based on the description that I got from 2 independent sources, felt like he deserved the Player's Choice.
So yeah, just to be clear, this is an award that's given to people who are voted by the players they're playing against as
Correct.
as fun to play with.
They have to be nominated to me. I take no responsibility for nominations. I just let people come to me when they've had an especially good time playing with someone and tell me they should be nominated for Player's Choice.
And was that his first round game or his second round game?
First round.
Okay. And by the way, it's nice to see the tournament winner also nominated for the Player's Choice. Diplomacy has the reputation of being a game that ends friendships, and to do well at it, some people think you have to lie and steal and really rile people up and do a lot of emotional manipulation. But in this case, Tanya not only won friends but also influenced people. So well done on that one.
In fact, of the top 7 place finishers, 4 of them were nominated, if I'm recalling correctly, because Tanya, Russ, Maxim, and Andre were all nominated.
All right. Well, maybe that's a lesson for people listening out there. Tell us a bit about the Cannon Fodder Award.
That's just a fun little one. It isn't always cannon fodder. If I thought of a different thing that the little miniature Revolutionary War replica cannon / pencil sharpener, if I think of something else that I could reward it for, I would. But every year it just comes back to cannon fodder, and that's just awarded to the player who played all of the rounds of the tournament, tried their best, like wasn't just mailing it in, but just got beat up by their opponents and finished with the lowest score out of the tournament for a player playing all rounds. And unfortunately for Amari, that was him, but hopefully he can take some consolation from the fact that obviously people enjoyed playing with him because he was nominated for Player's Choice.
Yes, thank you very much, Amari, for playing. And
every tournament has a cannon fodder. It's, sometimes it's me. This time it was you, but
I think we've all been there, and there's no shame in trying and coming up short. Only if you don't try again. So please come back, Amari, and hope you enjoy the figurine. You're sending these out to?
Oh yeah,
okay.
I'll be sending everyone's awards to them.
This is the end of Tanya's game. So we've had a look through this game. I'll go through it with Tanya. I think David's going to stay on with me. Randy, was there anything about this game that you wanted to mention?
Well, the thing that stood out to me, and I didn't monitor this game when it was going on. I took a look through it today when I learned that we'd probably be talking about it. And going through it after the fact, the thing that stood out to me the most was, from my perspective, Tanya basically had the solo in the bag by 1906. She actually got it in 1912, but tactically speaking, in the spring of 1906, she had been invited into the Ionian Sea by the Italians. She had an army sitting in Albania. She had an army in Constantinople next to an empty Italian center. The Russian had built 2 armies and then proceeded to support her in Livonia and let her just do whatever she wanted up there. So she was perfectly entangled with her allies. From a tactical standpoint, she was the only one next to their empty centers. And from a diplomatic standpoint, by that point, they had been clearly working with her and more or less at her direction for at least 2 years at that point. So from a diplomatic standpoint, as far as I could tell from the orders, at least, she had them well underhand as well. So when I was going through this game, when I got to spring 1906, that was the point where I said that this is where Tanya probably knew she had a solo more or less in the bag, so long as she just kept doing what she was doing.
So a well-deserved result then, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely. I mean, any solo, whether it's thrown or forced, is deserved because it's difficult to get either to happen. The fact that this one wasn't thrown, none of the other players, whatever you think of the tactical choices Italy and Russia made, they clearly weren't trying to help Tanya solo. So Tanya absolutely earned this one.
So good. All right, then we'll wait to go through the game with Tanya. Before we let you go, Randy, though, were there any other results or any other games that you wanted to mention?
I got to give a shout out to Maxim. I think David will have a different perspective on it than I did, but Maxim got to 17 centers as Russia. That's where he got his best Russia. I don't remember the exact year, but it was 19. I want to say 1910, something like that.
This is the game right here. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, when he got to 17, you mean?
And right as he was on the cusp of soloing, he was at 15 or 16 centers. The Italian player unfortunately had to step out, had another commitment, and I had to replace him with first David Miletsky, a very experienced multi-time tournament winner, has appeared on multiple top boards, great player, and then David Hood, who is also known for being a decent player. And I think that had the original player stayed in Italy, me no disrespect to that player who I know, I think Maxim had a solo in the bag. And it's just unfortunate that having to replace Italy with two very experienced players, from my perspective, is probably what cost him the solo. So sorry, Maxim. Better luck next time.
I want to give a quick shout out to our very own Christian Klein from Chicago. This was the situation that he faced in the fall of 1910, sitting at 12 units as France here, with the entire Italian boot in his possession, with 3 fleets past the Tyrrhenian Sea barrier. Looking at this setup, David, I'll go to you first here. Do you think Christian should have taken this draw?
Well, a lot of it depended on how much he wanted to get done with this game to get ready for the next round. But had I been in his shoes, I would not have taken the draw. I would have tried to push this to a solo attempt. I mean, it's hard to be critical of Christian because here he is at 12 centers. That's obviously a great result under the system to have to get to this point and have nobody anywhere near you. But yeah, this is obviously not a stalemated position. Now, we don't know what the diplomatic situation was. It is conceivable that the Christian would say if he were here, well, but the diplomatic situation was turning against me, so I figured I better quit. But at least from just looking at the pieces point of view, there seems to be some expansion room here that he could at least give a shot.
Randy, do you want to weigh in?
I agree. I wouldn't have stopped playing here. I'm not sure if a solo is in the cards, but there's certainly more dots on the table. The reason I say that I'm not sure there's a solo in the cards is not knowing the diplomatic situation. I can only look at the tactical situation here. Nicolas Saige and Eric Grinnell are in Turkey and Germany, respectively, are very strong players. Looks like Nicholas has 3 fleets down there and plenty of armies in the center. So I think he can hold off France's fleets in the Med for at least a turn or 2. And if he's able to convince Germany that France's next logical dots are probably Munich, maybe Kiel, and then the rest of England, if France can get that army in Bray up there and be useful, then I think Nicholas can talk Germany into turning those armies around and slowing them down. But France, I can see France easily getting to 14 or 15 centers at least. And given the scoring system, Carnage, where centers are a lot more important than a lot of people give them credit for, because 2 people with a first place will both get 7,000 points. So the only thing that separates them is the individual points from their centers. I think it would have made sense to keep on playing and get as many more dots as you can for tiebreaker purposes. But of course, if I recall correctly, this game did finish only an hour or an hour and a half before round 2 started. So it's possible the Christian was just tired and wanted to take a break before the next round started.
Yeah, we should note
certainly a consideration.
Christian was the winner of Virtual Dixie, so could have been making it 2 for 2 with these virtual tournaments. And it'll be worth noting for Maxim's game as well that that actually continued playing into round 2. So he and the other people on that board were playing 2 games at once,
and I'm sure that didn't help.
Yeah. Okay, then let's thank Randy. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thanks for running a great tournament.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for your commentary during the tournament. It was great. I think it added a lot. They got a lot of positive feedback on that as well. So you're doing great work here. Keep it up.
All right, thanks. It was the inaugural DBN broadcast, so that will forever be true. All right, man. Right. We will see you at a future event.
Sure you will. Take it easy, gentlemen.
Way to go, Randy. Way to go.
Thanks.
All right. Let us go back to personal view and say hello to the 2020 Boston Massacre champion, Tanya Gill. Tanya, welcome to the stream.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And congratulations on your win.
Thank you. It was exciting.
Can you, before we go through the solo, which is the game that won the tournament for you, just give us your overall impressions of the tournament. What was it like to play in, and was it fun?
Yeah, so I only got to play one round of Dixie for some reason, my own fault. So I thought Dixie actually went really, really well. Super fun to play at, and I was like sad that I didn't choose to play both rounds. So definitely, I think this format has been really good, really fun, and what it's done is pull in a bunch of new online players that were never going to, just spend a couple $100s to fly out to a tournament. To actually try and check out the hobby and see what it might be like. So I'm having a good time. I'm meeting, new players through this, and it's a good way to sort of kill a Saturday when you don't really have anywhere to go.
And as I mentioned earlier on the broadcast, you only somewhat recently made the jump from solely online play to face-to-face play just a couple of years ago, right?
So actually, I was looking at that. I actually started online 2015 and I started face-to-face 2017. So okay. I've been, playing face-to-face longer than I've been playing diplomacy, which still isn't too long compared to most people, but I feel like it's a long enough time now.
What do you think are the main compare the two formats, basically online versus face-to-face, and how do you compare them? What do you like about each one?
Yeah, so I will say straight up that I think face-to-face is superior to online play. Online, you can kind of just do at your own pace. Like the games I played would last a month and a half. I had, some games that only went one turn per week. So they would last 6 months. Face-to-face is a lot more exciting. You're there, you're with people that you make friends with, you know them, you go for drinks after. It's like a totally different dynamic, and there's something about being immersed in the game for 6 to 8 hours that doesn't really happen online unless you play a lot of live games, but it's just really not the same. So that social aspect exists way more face-to-face than it does online, where you have a lot of really introverted people online that would never actually go out to an event like this. So it plays to different sort of strengths as well in that regard.
So I mentioned earlier the third place finish at the Worlds, which is your first face-to-face tournament, right?
Yeah.
In Oxford, and I know it has bugged you so much that had gotten brought up every single tournament that you played at after that. Do you feel like with this victory that monkey is off your back now, or has the monkey gotten bigger?
No. Okay. So the problem with the victory at Oxford is that I think I'm a much better player now than I was when I started out at Oxford. So not to say I wasn't a good player back then, but I definitely got 2 gigantic scores that let me take that third place, whereas I wasn't on the top board. So I felt a little bit less deserving of that than I have for all the other scores I came after, even if it might not be true. I don't hate that score, obviously, but, at the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, I just joined the hobby, but this is all anyone wants to talk about. Now it's fine. Now I think I know enough people that it doesn't really make a difference one way or another.
So you're not going to try to convince us that you lucked into this victory, are you?
No, I will not. I definitely saw an opportunity. I've been playing a lot of Austria, so I've been really working those Austrian skills. No, I don't think it was pure luck at this point. No.
Good. Oh, it's so nice to hear you. It's so nice to hear you admit that. All right, good. So let's get to the game then. So I think a couple months ago you pulled Austria for one of the games that we were covering, and you claimed to hate playing Austria and that it was your worst country. And you have repeatedly pulled Austria. I think it's 4 different times we've seen you play Austria while we've been doing live streams, and you have topped the board every single time, and now have soloed as Austria. So explain yourself.
Yeah, I've clearly just peaked. So
if you can.
I hope I get a different country. No, I don't know. I think I've gotten into the groove of it. I think when you play a country enough times, you start to see the patterns that form around you, and you start to figure out what other countries kind of want to hear. And like for me, I think what has led to a lot of top boards as Austria has been getting Russia on my side. Just something as simple as that makes the game so much easier. So, I've just kind of, been thrown in this situation quite a few times, and like just figuring out what works in that regard has been what has helped the score, I suppose. Practice makes perfect.
David, did you want to make a comment there?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because it's great to get Russia on your side, but traditionally, Austria and Russia are the 2 of the most difficult countries to coordinate, because neither of them has the ability to project much naval power into the Mediterranean. So as an alliance, it can be a little bit unwieldy, because there's always somebody poking at you from the Mediterranean side, like the Italians or the Turks. So it's great that you've been able to figure out a way to solve that relationship problem in a way that benefits Austria. That's actually pretty outstanding.
Yeah. I feel like if you're Austria, though, and Italy attacks you in like 1902, you're going to have a rough game no matter what. So part of it is also like making sure the Italian does not do that. Like that is integral. So in the game that I soloed for Boston Massacre, actually, yeah, if you go to 1902, I think. So actually, it looks like everything has been planned, but it hasn't. In 1902.
Well, hold on. Before we do that, tell me about fall of 1901 here with Russia putting the fleet in Romania. Was this negotiated?
Yeah, I always ask the Russian to do that. I'm like, if you put that fleet in, you won't have to worry about me. And then they tend to do that because it's a pretty good deal most of the time.
Okay, and for anyone, for any beginners who are listening to this right now, the reason it's so good is because the fleet cannot do anything against Budapest and Galicia. So it's very Austria friendly to have a fleet there. Okay, yeah.
So here I was like, oh, this is great. Italy seems to be on my side. Russia put the fleet in. We didn't bounce and gout. Like everything is fine. And then 1902 rolls around.
Yeah, so tell us about the spring here.
Yeah, and Russia just completely backs out. None of these moves, like he told me he was doing a totally different set of moves. He told me he was supporting me to Serbia. Totally
Bulgaria, you mean, I assume.
Sorry, yeah, Bulgaria from Serbia. So that was a bit of a shock. And then
what was Bohemia supposed to be about? Why did you go to Bohemia here?
So I think we had learned pretty quickly that there might have been some kind of Western triple, or Germany was getting too big and there was going to be a really brutal EG. Yeah, I think that was what was going on. And we should put some pressure on Germany so that they don't grow too fast. And then the plan was Warsaw goes to Silesia. Okay. I went to Bohemia and then Venice to Tyrolia, but obviously one person decided not to do that.
What broke down with your negotiations with Russia at this point?
I thought nothing. I thought we were perfectly fine. But I think what's changed is I would have lost my temper here a few years ago, but instead of losing my temper, I was like, all right, it's fine. I get it, but I think you should, move against Germany and leave me alone. And then he actually did that, which was great. At the same time, Italy tried to stab me right here. So had Russia not walked back and Italy had stabbed me, I would have been done. This would have been a totally different game for me. But I the Italy here is a pretty new player. And at the end of our negotiations, with like 2 minutes left, I could like sense some kind of hesitation in his voice. And then he immediately went to talk to Turkey. So I was like, okay, I'm probably getting stabbed. And I changed my like entire moveset to just counteract that, which is what you see here. So I definitely got, lucky guessing that Italy was going to stab me here. And then after I did that, neither of them attacked me for the entire game. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, you can see it right here. If Russia keeps up the attack and takes Budapest here, your game is completely different, at least, for the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they could have just taken it, right? Like Romania supports Gal to Budapest or the other way around. And like, I would have been pretty done. There's nothing I could do then. But thankfully, the negotiation worked for once.
Well, but this is the mark of a really skilled player, right? That you were able to, there was a gauntlet of danger here and you navigated it perfectly, right? I think a lesser player would definitely have tripped over one of these pitfalls. So well done there.
Yeah, and that's like another thing about like face-to-face play. You can see who's talking to who, and the Discord lets you do that. Whereas like online, I would have just been stabbed and it would have been the end of it, right? But I saw that end rush to talk to Turkey, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Even, I mean, that's just an improvement in the interface from Dixie to Massacre, right? Dixie, you wouldn't have been able to see that happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit here. Let's see, fall of 1904. This is a critical moment as far as I can tell for you, and it was one that we spent a lot of time on in the live cast. Because you have the ability here to completely handicap Russia and basically become Russia. You could have replaced the Russian dots here. And instead, you walk out of two of Russia's dots, Warsaw and Romania. And that enables Russia to build two units which are behind your units. So you are, to an extent, entangled, but in a way that actually gives Russia more opportunity than you. So talk to us about this turn. What was going through your head? How difficult a decision was it to walk out of these dots?
So I definitely was tempted to stab at this point, Warsaw to Moscow, Gal to Warsaw, and then just hold Romania. And that would have been a great turn. But I think if I did that, what would have happened was Italy would not want to work with me any longer, A. And then B, I just couldn't see a way to get past that EG. Like, I can't get past that EG alone. I don't know if that EG is going to stab, each other at some point or break down or anything. So I thought that like I'm not going to, maybe I'll get a really big score, but I'm not going to, attempt to win if if Russia falls here, then like, I think it just helps Hunter in England.
Tanya, can I step in and ask a question here? That's such a critical point to me. You're already thinking at this point of whether you could solo as opposed to just topping the board. Is that right?
Well, I feel like you always think about soloing, and if you don't, it's topping the board, right? I mean, I feel like they're the same kind of goal. Like, yeah, I wasn't thinking about in 1904, like, I just need to top the board, so let me just take the Russian dots. I was definitely thinking, like, how do I get myself into the best position I can be in, like, when this game eventually ends?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of players just never even think of going for the solo, honestly. Even some experienced players don't. They just never look for the opportunity. It's not in their head. Is that in your head when you play?
I like not like actively in every turn, right? But yeah, I think, you think about what alliance you're going to have. You think about like, okay, I want to have a strong game. Obviously everyone like, I want a solo, and if I can find a way to do that, I will. And here I thought like, I don't want to get locked down. I don't want to get targeted really early. And, if I want to have that chance of a solo, it's not going to be taking Russia's dots right now.
Yeah, there are definitely situations where you can decrease your chances of a big result while increasing your chances of a solo. I actually think that happens fairly regularly, and I think you might have done that here. I think had you taken these 2 dots, your chances of topping the board are really high, but your chances of soloing are gone. So so this is a case where you keep alive a bigger chance at the solo result while possibly lowering your overall expectation value for center count. It sounds like you weren't thinking of it that way. You were thinking that you were increasing your chances of both a big board top and a solo by taking this tack.
Yeah, because I didn't see Russia turning around to attack me at that point. So I didn't really have that, even if he built 2, as like a threat to me. And I have all these units in the south next to like what is now, I gave Italy Greece, but the Greece dot and the Smyrna dot, which could just be mine, and Romania. Like I could have walked into those at like multiple points. So I really wasn't even thinking like, oh, Russia's going to fall down and attack me, because I just didn't see that happening.
Got it. And you figured whatever happened, you could prevent it.
Yeah, just like diplomatically, it just wasn't really an option with like England.
So let's fast forward here a little bit. You in fall of 1906 engineer this situation, and you get Italy to convoy your army in Albania to Tuscany, which I don't know if that seemed to him like a safer place to put your army.
I want to tell you something, okay? I don't want to take any credit for that move.
Okay.
I think it was the Italians' idea. He was like, let me convoy your army to Tuscany. It was
what would possess him to say that to you? What?
I would never suggest something that ridiculous. Like, it was not me. It was one of them. I think it was Italy, who I think just really likes to convoy things.
Yeah.
So, he was probably excited by that. But yeah, no, I did not. I said, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. That's just a gift laid at your feet right there.
Yeah.
But you understood the significance of that, I assume.
Oh, it was fantastic. I was like, yeah, that's not leaving Tuscany or not.
Yeah, for those who are watching at home who may not understand why we're so excited by this, it's very hard for Austria to get their units forward. And getting a unit on the opposite side of the Italian peninsula is just magnificent. It gives you so much leverage over the other dots on the Italian peninsula, not just to take them, but to keep them. So this was and Sam, we've talked to Sam before. He's a young player, fairly new and really enthusiastic, and we don't want to do anything to dampen that enthusiasm. But Sam, this is a learning moment for you, I think.
I think
this is like letting Hannibal cross the Alps and rampage in Italy on purpose. It's kind of what it's like.
The other thing it definitely did was it delayed my stab, because I had that army in Albania to eventually convoy it into Naples, right? But since it was already being convoyed into Tuscany with like permission, I didn't have a reason to stab, without, like, I could keep it there without looking suspicious, as opposed to the Albania move, which would be suspicious if it just stayed in Albania. So it definitely like also helped with the eventual solo, I suppose. Okay,
so at this point you are thinking consciously about 18. Are you starting to count dots and see where you need to get to?
Yeah, well, I did count, and I knew it would not happen without, something in Germany or France. So if I did stab Italy, it would have been okay, I can't solo. This is try to go for the high top board moment, which is what I thought it was going to happen, because I thought that EG would never break, that we'd it would take forever for us to get anywhere, and that I would have to just take Italian dots for the top board. Like, that was my plan, but thankfully I waited.
And so Sam wasn't complaining at all about the army in Constantinople, just hanging out there.
Actually, he did ask me to move it, and I moved it to Bulgaria. I think that happened soon.
Okay, which is still nice.
Yeah, it took a few years for him to say anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I moved it to Bulgaria. Yeah.
Okay, so So let's move forward here a little bit. The next crucial moment for me was England taking a dot off of Germany and forcing the disband in Ruhr. Now I've heard Hunter, I think I saw in a comment somewhere that he, I know this was relayed to me by the GM, that this was arranged between the two of them. From my perspective, it doesn't really matter. This is a dreadful mistake in their ability to, if in their goal of containing you, because letting you get into Ruhr, which is what happens next, and then into Burgundy, this is what really enables your solo opportunity. The fact that you have Munich, which is across the main stalemate line, is important, but it's not the thing that makes the solo happen. It's getting into Ruhr and Burgundy. So do you know what was going on here?
Okay, at the time, Germany told me that England was just taking his dots without consent, but that was a lie. They could have still continued to stop me. Like Holland just moves to Ruhr, right? And then I still can't get in. But what happened was I somehow convinced Germany to help me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to that point now. So you get into Burgundy, you get back into Ruhr. You've now got 3 armies across the main stalemate line. I want
to comment on just those French moves over there.
Okay.
So this is John Jameson.
All right.
And he wasn't just NMRing. I think this was a very deliberate, screw you to the rest of the board moment from him.
Oh, I see. Why? Because they were not getting their act together?
Yeah, I think he was just kind of frustrated by the play all around. He couldn't get Italy to move back. I don't think this was an NMR. He was entering in moves. So I do want to make that clear. And he told Italy, I'm going to walk out of all my dots, you take them or whatever. So at this point, if I'm, Italy or Russia, I'm concerned about me walking into those dots. Like they knew that was likely what's going to happen. And I would get in.
And he did enter a move here, right? Like this isn't a total NMR, even if it were.
Yeah.
But
so it wasn't just like, oh no, John was busy, he didn't enter in moves. He like very deliberately didn't do that.
He did have to leave. He did have to leave the game, though, isn't that right?
But dealing with that kind of reaction to those kind of personalities is how you win games like this. Honestly.
Yep. Yeah, and kind of no matter what happens, this is all part of the game. So there's really nothing to take away from your accomplishment.
Yeah, he did say he had a family emergency, and he did stop negotiating, but the moves were still there.
So Sam, we're going to come back to you here for a second. This is a moment where you really have to protect yourself. So instead of continuing to project yourself further forward, you continue to move your units further west, and this opens up the room for what ends up being the critical stab. So Tanya, here is a turn where you jump from 10 to 16 centers. Jumping 6 centers in one turn is obviously unusual. Tell us what happened.
Well, a lot of them were just there for me to take, which was really nice. I did ask Italy to support me to Brest. I can't remember what exactly my reasoning was. I think it's something like, oh, you're getting Spain and Portugal, so we need to stay even. So if I could get Brest, it'd be really great. And then he ended up just supporting me in. And Russia was supposed to get Kiel, but I knew what their moves were, so I was able to cut that. Yeah, it just, I knew what was happening. I knew what moves they were all making. So it was super easy for me to just take 6.
Were they all just happy to help you win at this point?
No. I think Italy said he went and cried for 5 minutes.
And
he
really didn't see it coming at all?
No, I guess not. I don't like if I am, England or France, and I've played the game for years. I can't understand why none of them told one of them to tell me to move Bulgaria back to Serbia or up to Budapest, right? Like, it just I don't know what was going on there.
Tanya, I think you're making a great point. It's not just Sam's fault. I mean, when you take 6 centers and it's awful, everybody on the board, first of all, that is a work of art on your part. And secondly, that is a failure on a lot of people's parts. And it's just part of the game that you get distracted by your own stuff. And look what happened.
Yeah, definitely. Like someone should have been like, hey, like look at all the dots she's like touching. She could just take them. But I don't think anyone said that to them. And then yeah, of course he was shocked when I finally did it. And like he didn't know. But yeah, so at that point, Italy and England were like, and Germany were trying to figure out a way to stop me. But I think Russia at that point was like, the next round is starting in like 40 minutes. You know, I don't really see a way to stop her, and you know, we'd have to keep playing for a while. And then he just said, screw it, and he didn't really try that alliance, but they did try. They were talking, and I was kicked out, so I just sat and talked to Corey.
Well, and then in the final turn, it seems like in this turn they weren't really trying.
Yeah, I think at that point Russia was like, yeah, no, I'm not wasting my time with this.
Yeah.
And then
they could have kept you from getting 18 in this turn, but you still had Greece and Smyrna behind your lines, so keeping you from 18 indefinitely would have required, it may not even have been possible, and it certainly would have required a lot of work to even try.
Oh, definitely. And I think like in a normal game without, you know, like the time constraints or another round starting in like 30 minutes, there's a chance that was not a very strategically placed solo, right? Like you're not over the line. You don't have all the dots behind your line like confirmed, and you just need one more. There was a lot of guessing, a lot of randomness, and a lot of chaos on that board. So it could have gone either way, in my opinion. Like if they continued to try and fight. Brest lost easily. You know, I would have lost. Rome or Naples. So this game could have gone on quite a bit longer if it weren't, you know, Russia giving up or, you know, people just not wanting to keep playing.
But instead, you had England walking out of a dot and supporting you in Russia's dot, and that was that. So
I guess they had some bad feelings towards each other.
So, all right, Tanya, this has been really, really great. One last question for you. What do you think it is? What was the key to winning this tournament for you? What do you think you did well enough to win?
Well, I mean, I soloed, which was helpful. But you know, I guess winning is also like there are things you can control on your board, but there are a lot of boards that you can't control. And you know, if Maxim had soloed on his board, right, like I would have had to work way harder in the second game to like clutch that victory. Obviously I knew he didn't solo, so I didn't have to work that hard. And the Italy on this board was France to my Italy on the other board, so that was kind of annoying as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't play the game to win the tournament. I play the game to just to win the game that I'm in. So I guess I don't really think of like broader tournament strategy if other people do like to that extent. I just want to do the best I can in the game I'm in. And obviously in the second game, I knew I didn't have to do that well to still get the tournament, but I still played to, you know, the best of my capacity.
Well, you did a lot of things very, very well. So I want to congratulate you for your tournament championship. It was well earned, well deserved. And you, I think, have now confirmed what everyone suspected, which is that you are one of the top players currently playing face-to-face diplomacy.
Well, I'm hopefully getting there. I'm working on it. But yeah, no, thank you both for your commentary. And Siobhan, of course. It's been super fun to listen to you guys. And I think I'm learning quite a bit just from listening to you guys talk. So, you know, there's also that aspect of it. It's definitely.
You know, if you don't mind me saying so, I think we could all learn a little bit from you on this board.
Indeed,
so great job.
Too kind.
Well done, Tanya. All right. Thanks for joining us on the wrap-up show. And Have a great night. We'll see you again at a future tournament.
Thank you for having me.
See you, Tanya.
All right, David, are you ready to talk? Actually, David, we're going to let you go now for a bit. I'm going to bring on some new players to get their perspective on the tournament and on diplomacy. You'll be hanging out and rejoining me for a little send off afterward.
Sounds good.
All right, David, we'll see you in a bit. All right, and joining me now on the live cast, or on this wrap-up show, I should say, is Maxim Popov. Welcome, Maxime. Let's go to this view. And Lea Letourneau.
Hi.
Hello, Lea. Did I say your name correctly, first of all?
You did, for the first time all stream.
Oh, great. Well, I think I said Lee a couple times on the live stream, so apologies for that.
No worries.
And Maxime, am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah.
As well? All right. So Maxime, let's start with you. Tell us where you are joining us from and a little bit about yourself.
I'm here in Ames, Iowa. It's a fairly small college town of maybe 50,000 people. I'm a high school student. I'm going to be in my senior year this year, and I recently started playing diplomacy, really in March.
Oh, so just in March?
Yeah.
How did you come across the game?
I had played a few games before that with my friends, but we'd never reached a seventh player, so it wasn't really playing. And I found an online website, Play Diplomacy, and I started playing there.
And what was it about the game that hooked you?
I liked math games, so I think that's what got me started, but it was really interesting to try to manipulate other players and try to work towards common goals while getting ahead yourself.
And no qualms about having to lie to people on a regular basis, or does that come naturally?
It depends on the player. Sometimes it's more difficult to stab, but at others it's fine.
And have you found, so diplomacy has a reputation of being the game that ends friendships. Has that been a problem for you with your high school friends?
No. Some people got a little bit upset during the games, but I don't think we ever got far enough to the point where many people were eliminated, and I don't think they cared enough about the game, mostly.
Okay, well, good. I hope that it continues to go as copacetically as that. Lea, tell us about how so this was only your second game of diplomacy ever, is that right?
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, so tell us where you are joining us from, first of all.
Oh, I'm joining you from sunny Edmonton, which if anyone in the broadcast is actually from Edmonton, they'll know that is, of course, a lie.
Yeah, no. So those of us who are not, help us out. Is Edmonton a cloudy place?
Right now, yeah, it's the rainy season, so.
Okay. And how did you come to diplomacy?
Well, I was actually referred by Stephen Hogue, our player's choice of the tournament.
Excellent.
I don't know if you've ever spoken to him, but there is no one who loves diplomacy more than that man. We kind of are on the same internet forum, and he's always trying to recruit people. He's like, look, they do these really cool streams, and I spent hours watching, and basically you can't say no to a guy like that forever. So he dragged me into it. A couple of months ago, I played the first game, and it kind of ended with everyone losing interest and stopping, but I thought that it was quite fun, and yeah, decided to sign up for this one, which was way more intense than I ever could have predicted.
Yeah, what was the experience like?
Yeah, I thought it would be like text messages or something. I wasn't expecting to be on a microphone for 6 hours straight. I don't think I'm in good enough physical shape for that. There was just like no time to eat or drink, just people constantly needing to talk about this or that. And it was a thrill, though. It was a thrill.
So this was, okay, so then your first game didn't really go sort of fully to any sort of natural conclusion. This is your first sort of full game then, is that right?
Yes, turns out they can end.
So, all right, let's look at your game. You can talk us through a little bit about what that was like. Give us a little more detail. So you were, I believe, in this game. This is your round 2 game. You were only in round 2. Mm-hmm. And you were playing, let's go back to the beginning here. You were playing Germany, and next to you was Nicolas Sahuguet, who is a former world champion and a very sharp player. What was it like? What were your negotiations like in the beginning? You said you found them a little overwhelming. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Yeah, basically everyone kind of popped in to introduce themselves. And of course, I didn't really have anything other to say than, hi, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing, which ultimately kind of led to everyone wanting to help me out. And yeah, I kind of got a sense the England player seemed I got a bit better vibe from him than the France player. So I decided to kind of say, hey, England, want to kill France? And went from there. And yeah, everyone was quite nice. And I just have a quick note about Russia. So Turkey was going around telling me that Italy was a world champion as well, and I had to watch out for him. And then when I mentioned that to Italy, he's like, what? No? So I'm glad to hear you confirm that at least one person actually was a shark in that game.
Yeah, it was Russia. Italy, I actually know him. He plays locally in Chicago with us, and he just started playing the game about 6 months ago. But he's caught on extremely quickly and is already near the top of our league. So he's a nuclear physicist, very smart, very good player.
Oh,
So
wow.
Potential future world champion, but definitely not a past world champion. What was it like with Russia though? What did you find him easy to negotiate with, or was he a little bit like sort of scary?
Well, I didn't actually talk to him that much. This game was a little bit unfortunate for him because basically, I guess Austria kind of went overly aggressive against him, and basically he was hanging out in kind of the table talk chat saying, she self-destructed into me. She ruined her own game and put herself in a horrible position just to screw with me. Why would she do that? And he kind of did that over the course of like several hours every time we would pop in. So didn't talk to him much, but he actually did give me a couple of pieces of advice, which was really helpful. And he just kind of let me have Sweden at one point.
Excellent. So it's such a lonely thing in diplomacy when nobody wants to talk to you. It happens once in a while, and it's very difficult. Okay, real quick though. So in the beginning of the game, it's a lot of new players like to play cautiously. They don't want to take sides initially because it's hard for them to figure out which side they should take. And so in the West, this often ends up being producing a Western triple. So all three players ally together because the newer player is reluctant to make an aggressive move and choose a side. Doesn't sound like that was a problem for you. You decided to go for it and kill one of these other players. What was that hard for you, or were you just like, yeah, let's do it?
Not at all. I just thought that was what you did. They say that the most dangerous opponent in a sword fight is the one who doesn't know how to use a sword. Because instead of coming out with the expected moves, they'll just kind of wildly flail around. And I think that's kind of what went on in this game.
Are you a fencer? Is that something you have experience with?
Yeah, in games like this, I usually do kind of go more for the aggro role. And I didn't mean to intend to go that aggro. My goal for this game was basically to help someone like England win and just kind of come out of it being somewhat well-liked, have a nice time. I really wasn't kind of expecting for everyone to do the same thing to me.
All right, so let's move forward a little bit in the game. There were several points. We talked about this a lot on the broadcast where England, Tommy Anderson, had a lot of opportunity to stab you and take some dots, and he never did. And we faulted him a lot for this. And then we also started to give you credit for keeping him from doing that. How did you do that? How did you keep him from from stabbing you from behind?
Well, I didn't really do much. I think that he's just like a really, really nice guy because like I came in here kind of wondering like, do I tell the truth or do I pretend to be some kind of diplomacy mastermind? But yeah, I guess if I had to give an instance, France took the attack by England a lot more personally than he did the attack for me. So you can kind of see he was always supporting me moving into Belgium. And I never actually took him up on that offer just because I kind of figured, okay, I have one ally. I don't want to immediately stab him. So I don't know if that maybe bought me some cred, or maybe we just had a good rapport, or maybe he just kind of wasn't feeling it. But that's a mystery to me as well.
Well, it's part of being a good alliance partner is creating a situation like that. So I know you don't want to take credit for keeping him from stabbing you, but you maintained a great alliance with him, and that is what prevented him from doing it. So you definitely deserve some credit on that score. Any other thoughts from this game? Do you feel like you learned something about the game from it, the game of diplomacy?
Yeah, I'm still kind of shaky on, the actual game part of it. I really enjoyed the talking and the social manipulation, that part of it. One part, if I had to say what my favorite part was, at one point, I think it was a couple years before this, but basically Austria and Italy both had units outside of Munich. And I was kind of a little bit wary of that, and I spoke to them both. And
so right here, fall of 1903.
And nothing really ended up happening. They both kind of retreated. But later on, like when Austria and Turkey took Venice, I sort of messaged Italy and was like, hey, what's up? And he said, oh, they're trying to teach me a lesson because I didn't play ball and help them invade Munich. And then I kind of go, okay, that might be true, might not be true. So then I went over to Austria and kind of like mentioned like, hey, just wondering, why do you stab Italy like that? And they're like, said something entirely different, like he wasn't being a team player or he had a bad attitude or something like that, which, okay, it's a he said, she said situation. So, but then I went to Turkey, which was Austria's alliance partner, and I kind of asked for his take on it, and he gave me something completely different from what Austria said. So then I figured, okay, if she's the liar, I'm just going to say that I'm going to support her moving up against Russia in the north, and then I'm just going to stab her and not stop stabbing until she's gone. And that worked out because, Italy, towards the end of the game, he did just like give me Marseille for free because he's like, you should win. I like you.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so I can see you support Italy into Venice here, and then you actually get Austria to support you into Venice while Italy pulls himself into Rome. So this is, there's some really nice work in here diplomatically, you can tell. Well, that's great. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope you'll play again.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a ton of fun.
All right, let's turn to Maxim, and Maxim, tell us about this game. So this is where you won Best Russia. Oh, and Lea won Best Germany for this game, we should say. So this was the best performance as Germany in the whole tournament. So congratulations on that, Lea. All right, so Maxim, so tell us about this game that ended up winning you Best Russia for the second tournament in a row, I should add.
I've played with Stephen Hogue before at my last tournament at DixieCon, and he worked with Bill Hackenbracht and attacked me. But I had a good I thought he was a good alliance player there when he hadn't attacked Bill or Austria, I'm pretty sure, at all. So I expected him to work with me, so I decided to work with him, and he offered a RAT alliance, and I took him up on the offer and went forward from there.
So, well, how was it working next to Steve Hogue, who, both of you guys know now, and also won Player's Choice? Did you find him especially delightful to negotiate with?
Yeah, I thought it went well. I felt like I could trust him fairly well, and it turned out well. So I'm happy it did so.
So this bounce in Sevastopol was arranged, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. You opened to Livonia, which is a slightly unusual move. Was there a specific rationale for that?
We had agreed to DMZ in Galicia, but I didn't. Germany was looking like he would give me Sweden, and with the play in the south with Steve and Turkey, I thought that it would look like we were not going to work with each other, or that it looked like he was going to stab me. So I didn't want to move against Germany, but I also didn't want to move fully against England in case things didn't turn out well elsewhere, and I just didn't know where else to go.
Got it. So nothing else to do with it. Might as well go to Livonia. Yeah. You had an opportunity here, by the way, to convoy the army to Sweden. Did you consider that?
Not very much. Germany didn't want me going there, and he told me about that. And
okay.
I just didn't think it would add too much more to me, and it would antagonize him.
Yeah, it's a pretty anti-German thing to do. But if Germany specifically said don't do that, then and you want to maintain that relationship, then that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then so talk us through some more of this game then. What it seemed like you went to war against Germany fairly quickly, and then you still supported him in you supported him in, let's see, where was that? In fall of 1903 here. Yeah, you support him in Sweden here while taking Berlin. What was the status of the alliance structure at this point?
I was getting pretty worried about France getting big and quickly, and I thought Germany's 2 fleets would be very nice to use to help stop France. And so I came up to him and offered to work with him, and he agreed. So we went ahead and did that.
Got it, but you weren't gonna walk out of Berlin.
No.
Were you supposed to, and you didn't, or was he?
I don't think we discussed Berlin very much at that point.
So what was your plan at this point in the game? How did you foresee the game working out at this point?
I thought that things were going well and that France would be my major adversary towards the board top. I didn't expect to go for a solo or to get near it. I haven't had experiences with solos before. I've never gotten there.
But in the South, there was still lots of activity going on down here, and you didn't have any units down here. How worried were you about possible shenanigans?
I was not aware that Austria was planning to attack Turkey when they did. Okay. That came as a complete surprise to me. I was still, after how we had worked together, I was still pretty confident that Turkey would work with me. And even when he did walk into my centers, he agreed, or at least agreed once, to walk out of them with my support. So.
All right, let's move forward and have a look at some of this. So you spend the next few years sort of moving around the north a bit. You end up moving against Austria in the south, and you make progress in both fronts. Like it's a really nice sort of steady advance along all of these different fronts. And here you have an opportunity, and I want to talk to you about this fleet build. You decided to build a fleet in the south coast of St. Petersburg rather than the north coast.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you were thinking at that point?
I didn't want things to escalate with France. We had agreed to some balances, like some de-escalation in the region, but I still wanted fleets up there, and I just wasn't sure how far to go with that. I probably should have built a fleet in the north coast. I probably would have let me get the solo, but
it's an interesting moment, right? Because you know who your main adversary is, and you think you have the chance of keeping him at bay through negotiation, right? And that's worth a lot, right? So it's not something to throw away casually. You have to balance the tactical advantage versus the diplomatic advantage. Let's say, so you had a rationale. That's what's really important, right? You weren't just guessing. You had a specific rationale for this build. That's great. Tactically, the Northern Fleet definitely would have served you better, right? And I think you saw that pretty quickly. Okay, so then let's jump ahead now to this turn. So it seems like all hell is breaking out in the east, and Turkey and Italy are fighting. You finally have some units nearby, but kind of anything. It seems like anything could have happened here. How did you and what happened worked to your advantage? So how did you work this?
I was expecting to have a unit in Moscow because France agreed to bounce Silesia with me, but then he didn't get around to ordering it in time and adjudicated. So I was hoping to get more there, but it was nice to get into Silesia to be able to get more on Munich. Italy didn't seem very worried about my expansion, and I thought I could keep him fighting France. And with all of his fleets, I thought he would want to expand with them somewhere, and I wasn't much of an option for that.
Were you thinking about the solo here, or were you?
Yeah, when I stabbed Turkey, that's when I decided that I was going to go for it.
Okay, so this was a stab. The taking Romania here. Okay, well done then. There's absolutely the right time to stab here. Oh, I see. You were hoping to still be in Moscow so that you
could to get stabbed
as well. Okay, got it. Okay, so why do you think you didn't solo? What do you think was the key for you?
The Northern Fleet would have been nice, or some better positioning in the north. In the end, I think I was beaten back pretty far there, and I lost a lot in the area.
You advance quite far here.
Yeah.
For me, this is actually the crucial turn. This is where you had a chance to break through France's lines. It would have been messy, but you had Burgundy guaranteed if you wanted to.
Yeah, when I was playing more aggressively at first, before I was getting too close, things were working out. I watched the stream afterwards, so I heard your advice, or I think it was David Hood. I don't remember for sure, advising me or saying that I should have played more aggressively at this point. Or no, it was Bill. Yeah.
All right, you were playing this game during the second round at this point, right? This was played simultaneously with your second round game. Yeah, so I think David Hood was actually playing in this game at this point. Yeah. I think he was Italy at this point. Had replaced Stephen Mondak, who had been replaced by David Hood.
Yeah.
This is the turn where you can break into Burgundy. Once you start getting armies into Burgundy, then there's very little way for France to hold you back. It would be messy because France might be able to get an army up in here. But as long as you are getting more units and building them and reinforcing things from the back, you'll eventually overcome that. But like, you did a phenomenal job to get to this point, right? And even, at this point, you're playing 2 games at once. You're not an experienced player, right? So you should feel real, forget about not getting the solo, like feel great about getting to this point and getting a huge board top. 17 center Russia is no small thing.
Yeah, I was happy with the result, even if it could have been a little better.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always next time, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. You guys have been great. I'll let you guys go in a second. Lea, do you have any thoughts on Maxim's game here, having seen it now? Oh, we can't hear you, Lea. Is your
It's a lot more impressive than mine was.
What do you mean? Apart from the size, is there something else about it?
Well, I of course don't really know how to read these maps, but it looks like he was just like extremely dominant. Whereas with me, like, even though I had like 11 centers, which was like second most, first most, depending on the point of the game, it was all just kind of like centralized, like a slightly, basically it felt like, my game had kind of me and Turkey and England as well, who are all sort of roughly equal, whereas this just looks like pure Russian domination, which is really cool.
Yeah, Russia is a fun country to play because it has it really is spread out. It has feet in has a hand in every single spot on the board, and that means it's heavily dependent on diplomacy for advancement, and it means it can sort of fail spectacularly. So Maxim, you should feel really good about playing a difficult country well. And Lea, I should say Germany is it's one of the central countries. It has a little bit more advantages than Austria or Italy does, just sort of geographically, but it also is heavily dependent on negotiation, being a central power. These are countries that are typically harder for beginners to play, and both of you guys played them really well and should feel really good about that.
Oh, thank you.
So, all right. So, Maxim, what's next for you in terms of diplomacy?
I'm gonna continue to play online. I'll play in the Liberty Cup tournament. I'm hoping to go to some face-to-face tournament in the future. I don't know when I'll be able to make that happen, but.
Well, we're probably the closest to you. Although the Minneapolis club, when they finally get a tournament together, that might be closer. When we have a Chicago tournament in person again, please come on over. We have had high school players play with us. There's one in our club currently, a high school kid from the close suburbs. You're welcome to play in one of our online games as well for the club. So feel free to contact me if you're interested in that.
I'll
Lea,
make sure to do that.
Great. Lea, are we going to see you at Liberty Cup?
Not sure what that is, so maybe. Honestly, I'm still tired from Saturday. That was just like pure adrenaline, pure nonstop, nothing but diplomacy. But I'm sure I'll start craving that high again soon enough. So I'm going to Google Liberty Cup right after this is over and see how my schedule works.
Yeah, August 1st is the date. It's going to be a one-day tournament as well. And the Chicago tournament, we're planning to have an online version at the end of August. We might do 2 weekends. We're getting ready to announce that coming up. But we'll make sure that Steven is in contact with you and tries to get you to sign up for the next one as well.
I'm sure he will.
So Lea and Maxim, it's been great talking to you, and thanks for joining our diplomacy community, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Me. Everyone was awesome.
All right, have a great night, both of you. Welcome back to the stream, David Hood. You got to observe some of that, some of our interview with Lea and Maxim. What were your thoughts on these new players?
Well, as someone who's been around a lot longer than they have in the diplomacy hobby, it's really exciting to see new players come in and not just come in and play, but come in and really enjoy playing. And you can tell that both of these, even players, even though they're new, are both naturals at a game like this that involves reading people and reading situations. You could just tell that. I was particularly impressed with Leah's comment about Maxim's game, honestly, because it's absolutely right. Maxim's game shows the domination of Russia going in every direction at the same time. You and I know that because we know Russia straddles the stalemate line, and there's all sorts of technical reasons you and I know that a big Russia looks a certain way, whereas a bigger Germany may not look that way. She picked up on that right away. Maxim obviously has some great skills moving the pieces around. You can't pick up this game in March and get to 17 in June and not have a lot of really good ability to move pieces around the board. So I'm really high on his chances going forward as he gets more experience on the negotiation side of it.
Yeah, honestly, it's a blessing for all of us that he didn't win this tournament because, good Lord. At least we'll have a chance now going forward. Yeah,
I predict there will be a win for him at some point, however.
Yeah, probably sooner rather than later. It's I was impressed talking to them. They're both very sharp. It's really no surprise listening to them talk. It's no surprise that they both did really well diplomatically because they both, I think, have a good sense of they have a good feel for the tugs and pulls of the game. Now,
I don't want that to discourage anybody else who's watching this that's a relatively new player and you've gone to a tournament or you've played a few times, you've gotten crunched every time and you think, what the heck is going on? And sometimes there is nothing you can do about it. And sometimes you have an opportunity like these two do to really do something in your, in one of your early tournament games in your early life in diplomacy. So don't be beating yourself up if you don't get to recreate Maxim's position here. But it's obviously fun to see new players really enjoying themselves. That's what we're all here to do is to have people enjoy themselves.
Yeah, it's really worth pointing out that just because you don't win a best country award in your first tournament, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good player. Like most players develop more slowly than that.
There was a player, David Miller, from the D.C. area. You came to a lot of tournaments, came to DixieCon several times, didn't do all that well. He's a two-time winner. He's won the last two face-to-face DixieCons. So it just goes to show you, just hang in there and you will improve.
Yep. But well done, Lea and Maxim. All right. So we have, let's wrap this up by having a look at upcoming events on the Diplomacy Broadcast Network. And here they are. In July, we have a Windy City Weasels League game, which is currently scheduled for July 8th. And this can be found on the schedule can be found on our website, which is printed at the bottom here, diplobn.com. We also have coming up a news program that David is hard at work at developing. So keep an eye out for that. We hope to get the first episode out in mid-July. And David, is there anything you want to say about that?
It's going to be fun. The Diplomacy Broadcast Network is such a great idea anyway, but who's ever heard of a network that doesn't have a network news program? Right. So we're going to make that happen.
And we're hoping to do it monthly. And my prediction right now is that David Hood David Hood is going to be the host, and he is going to be the Walter Cronkite of diplomacy. So we're all looking forward to that. In August, we will be providing live coverage of the Liberty Cup. You can register now at libertycup.com, liberty-cup.com. And please subscribe to us on YouTube if you are not a subscriber already. Thank you all very much for watching. David, it's been great having you on this wrap-up show. And it was great having you on the commentary in the first place. and look forward to seeing you on the news program and on future commentaries.
You got it, Brandon. Awesome job.
All right. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.